Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Greg Anthony here, and glad you're back on this February 20th, 2017 day on our calendar. You're listening to the Investigative Journal on this President's Day. Yes, President's Day. I remember when it used to be called Lincoln's birthday, then I think there was a Washington's birthday, but now they've kind of grouped it all together, and we're supposed to celebrate all 45 of our presidents. But I doubt many people can even remember each one of them. I probably could come up with 20 to 25 right off the top of my head. But who do you really celebrate? What if you don't like a president? Or what if you like one? Do you pick that one out? Well, on this day, I usually start out with a Jesuit quote, but I'm going to do everything together. Today, we're going to celebrate the a number of presidents that were killed or assassinated by the Jesuits, mainly because they must have been doing something right. So we'll get into that in a moment, but since we're talking about the Jesuits, I did a show last week talking about how the Black Pope and the White Pope are both Jesuits, and I was referring to Father Adolfo Nicholas and also Pope Francis, who's a Jesuit priest, and I said, it's kind of confusing. Who's really the head man here? Is it the Black Pope, who many people say control the White Pope, and now the White Pope is the Black Pope? Very confusing. So I got a email from a listener who advised me that on October, I believe it was 14th, 2016, that's a little ways back, another Jesuit general was elected as Father Adolfo Nicholas stepped down. So now we got four Jesuit generals running around the globe, right? Or the flat earth, whatever you choose to believe. And boy, that's kind of interesting. I know Kolvenbach, he's still around. He's probably somewhere in the Middle East fomenting ISIS, getting all the money together for ISIS. Then now we got Adolfo Nicholas going somewhere. And now we got Arturo Sosa, who's the newly elected 31st Superior General of the Society of Jesus. And he was elected in Rome by 212 Jesuit electors, a big deal. And you can go read about that. Sosa, the first Latin American Jesuit general from Venezuela. Wow, they're doing well over there, aren't they? So let's see what happens. So we got four of these guys running around. Now, what makes it so strange? We also have two popes. So we have four Jesuit generals. What are they, 4-star, 5-star? How do they do that? I don't know. Then we got two vicars of Christ, or two popes running around that claim they're Christ. So all in all, and one of the popes is Jesuit too. So wow, how confusing is this? And what makes it so confusing is that in the past, the Roman Catholic Church, both of these positions always were for life, and most of the popes either were, some of them killed by the Jesuits too, but most of them died as a pope, and the Jesuit general stayed in for life as well. So what are they doing? Well, I think what they're doing is getting rid of all these sacred ideas and turning themselves into nothing but a military order. Just like in politics, every 4 years in our country we have new generals, we have new leaders, and they're doing the same thing. So they're really telling us that they're more of a military order than they are a sacred religious order, right? So I just wanted to update. And another thing, how could I miss that? Because I usually am one of the few people in the country that keeps up on this stuff, but I missed it. One, they kept it very quiet. I didn't hear anything about it. And two, there's so much going on with Donald Trump and everything that's going on in the world that, boy, it's hard to keep up with this stuff. So we're going to have to check out who this guy Sosa is. And I wonder, no relation to Sammy Sosa, the Cub baseball player. We'll have to check that out. Check his family tree. I think Sosa's from the Dominican. But anyway, new Jesuit general. A lot of these guys running around now. They got a lot to do, preparing World War III. And their dictator, what's that guy from North Korea that's going to probably start it all? Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is. He just assassinated his stepbrother. That's an interesting story. 3 women from North Korea. He was in asylum because he didn't get along with his leader, his stepbrother leader in Korea, and so they sprayed something in his face in a either train station or a airplane, airport, and he's dead. So anyway, that's an aside. So what we're going to do is look at some of the presidents that were killed by the Jesuits. First, on President's Day, and they must have been doing something right. I'm not celebrating their death. I'm celebrating the fact that they must have been presidents that were going to do something to get rid of this society of Jesus, which plagues the earth to this day. And then we're going to talk about what's up with Trump and what's really going on behind the scenes. And I got an email from someone. I got 10 emails on the same subject. Greg, please set us straight. Who is Trump? Is he for real? Is he working as a Jesuit? Is he a New World Order freak? Is he like Kennedy, who was going to get rid of everything? And does he have a target on his back? A lot of questions. You know something? I can't be sure of everything. Of course, can't predict the future, but we'll talk about some interesting things that lead me to open up discussion about what he really is all about and what his plan really is, or what the Jesuit plan really is. And we'll do that as well. But first, let's talk about some of the presidents that were assassinated by the Jesuit. Okay, 2 of the more well-known presidents, and most people in this country can tell you who they are. John F. Kennedy, 1, and also Abraham Lincoln, number 2. Those 2 are, probably the most well-known presidents that have been killed by the Jesuits. And there's so much evidence on it, that irrefutable evidence, especially, and we've talked much about, probably more about Abraham Lincoln than any other president. And the evidence is so overwhelming, and it shows you that the media as well, and historians and all these Ivy League colleges and universities are in the pocket of the Jesuits. They don't want to even bring up the evidence. And there's enough evidence to put the argument on the table, and that's all I've ever asked for. And it never gets there. Never gets on the mainstream, never gets in the history books that you read in college, never even gets on the History Channel or the movies made. And they just do not block that. Now, let me tell you, regarding Abraham Lincoln, we've had on C.T. Wilcox, who wrote a definitive book on this and had evidence that needed to be discussed in the mainstream that was overlooked. He tried to make a movie, and that, you know where that went. So, without question, Lincoln was killed by the Jesuits, and we've given you, I don't know, I've given 10 good facts showing that this should at least be discussed. The next one is Kennedy, and we've talked much about that as well. And one of the things that I want to listen to again just on this President's Day is a little speech he gave, the conspiracy speech he gave right before the Jesuits killed him. And basically, there's a number of reasons why, and we went over that, but why don't we listen? It's only about a minute and a half. I got a minute and a half clip here highlighting this speech that he gave, and I believe it was to a evangelical group. So we're going to listen to that, and then I'll get back with some other presidents that were killed by the Jesuits. Okay, here we go. Let me pod this up. Kennedy's speech right before he was killed. Here we go. All right. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. But we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy.
Okay, there's really no doubt, in my mind anyway, that Kennedy was killed by the Jesuits, as well as his brother Robert. And one thing behind the scenes also, there was when he was president, Cardinal Spellman of New York was the most powerful man in the country, and Kennedy made it a point to let Spellman know that he was not welcome in the White House. So that's another reason he had to go. And also, he did say that he did not want any pontiff to control the country. And so if he said that, he must have known that the Pope and the Jesuit order had deep control of our country even back then. And if you really study history, they had our control of this country long before, even in the formation of it. And that's perhaps my most, I love researching that aspect of history, right before the American Revolution and the formation of our country, and the Vatican and Jesuit hand behind it, and the real reasons why this country was formed. So, on this President's Day, let's look back at a few presidents that have basically we're going to start out with one, Andrew Jackson. Okay, now Trump many times refers himself to Andrew Jackson. And if you look at Jackson's history, he was a populist, etc. And he wanted to do a few things contrary to the Jesuits. He wasn't killed, but it was very close. And then we'll get into a few more before we get into that subject of what's up with Trump. Okay. In Bill Hughes's book, The Secret Terrorist, that's a good one to start out with because he gives you some really bullet points on what to look for. And if you keep your research going, you'll find many other things regarding the Jesuit reason for wanting some of these presidents to be kind of taken out, right? So we have basically the Jesuits during the time of Jackson scheming for a central bank in America was temporarily stopped during Jackson's presidency. Okay? Now, we know we have that central bank today. Kennedy wanted to put us back on the gold standard, so there's a connection there, right? Well, he had opposed Calhoun's states' rights doctrine. And Calhoun, I believe wasn't Calhoun his vice president? Or a high-level politician. Excuse me, I'll have to check that out again. But anyway, when other things failed, the Jesuit declared that it is commendable to murder someone who stands in their way. Now, listen to this. He said, the president had earned the undying hatred of monetary scientists, both in America and abroad. The Jesuits were furious with Jackson. It is not surprising, therefore, that on January 30th, 1835, an assassination attempt was made against him. Miraculously, both pistols of the assailant misfired, and Jackson was spared by a quirk of fate. It was the first such attempt to be made against the life of a president of the United States. The would-be assassin was Richard Lawrence, who either was truly insane, who pretended to be insane, to escape harsh punishment. At any rate, Lawrence was found guilty due to insanity. Later he boasted to friends that he had been in touch with powerful people in Europe who had promised to protect him from punishment should he be caught. Now that sounds pretty familiar. They always picking these lone gunmen, right? Kennedy's lone gunman, Oswald, and even John Wilkes Booth, supposed lone gunman, and Oswald, a supposed lone gunman. But we know that the hit team on Lincoln, John Surratt was one of them, was given asylum in the Vatican, protecting him, because they had planned it. So there's a lot of connections. And here we have Lawrence doing the same thing. Kill Jackson, and we'll protect you. And guess who they were? Now, what happened with Surratt and the Lincoln assassination, which we talked about a lot, Surratt was given protection first in Canada, I believe in a archdiocese there in Montreal. And then he was then sent to the Vatican, and he even posed under a fictitious name as one of the Swiss Guard. Until many of our lawmakers, and back then we went and got him, the Vatican released him because they realized the United States was hot on his tail. They caught him in Egypt, brought him back, and so what happened at that point was our diplomats in our Congress decided to cut off any kind of diplomatic relations with the Vatican because of evidence, overwhelming evidence. They put a hit on Lincoln. And why doesn't that get in the history books, I wonder? Because they don't want you to know about it. Because they control our history books. And they control our politicians to this day. So anyway, guess what happens? Those diplomatic relations were not reinstituted until Reagan came into office, and that great alliance between him and John Paul II. And so the Vatican now, folks, is so deeply embedded in our country. That's why you're seeing the Pope of Rome come and sit in front of Congress and be praised as a man of God, almost as a king, and why he gets that same kind of status in the United Nations. And why all the ecumenical evangelicals don't say anything against him. Back then, during Jackson, the Jesuit order was dead serious about taking over the United States. They infiltrated into government just like they do today, at the highest levels, and used their agents in controlling the American banking system. They would also use assassination when necessary to destroy any opposition to their plans. Jackson was almost assassinated by a Jesuit plant who bragged of powerful European ties, the Jesuits, that would set him free in case he was caught. Other presidents came along who also incurred the undying wrath of Rome. Several have been assassinated, and a few escaped certain death, some by poisoning, and others did not fare so well. And you have to discuss then the presidencies of William Henry Harrison, Zachary Taylor, and James Buchanan, on top of the two most obvious, that is Lincoln and Kennedy. So here I don't have time today to do it, but what I would recommend is if you start with Secret Terrorists by Bill Hughes. It's a very short book, but it bullet points a lot of what I'm saying right here. And from there, take your research farther, and you will see some amazing things regarding some of the near misses, and then the ones that they actually did kill. And that always had something to do with, their interests being subverted and their plan of a one world order of war and destruction being thwarted. And so they had to get rid of these people, and they justify it with the Jesuit oath. And it's usually what that means is their ends justify the means. And they have this crazy idea that they are the best, their ideas are the best for mankind. And that's why, folks, the Jesuits are located all over the world. I mean, there's not a country that either the Vatican or the Jesuits aren't involved in for that reason. And if you do a study of people in the world, 95% of people never leave, usually their territory, their home territory. So how could people that are very stationary, that live between their own borders, ever foment this kind of madness that's going on in the world today? It's a group that has control over the world. And that's why the Vatican has 190 concordats or legal agreements with countries, which give them favors and control for certain other favors. And if you don't think that the Jesuits basically are the military arm protecting all this money and power and land. And what's the one thing politicians always look for? Support and money, so they can get elected. And that's exactly why the Vatican, the richest organization in the world, are at the top of the pyramid, and why your leaders in Congress, your leaders in the presidency right now, whether it be Obama, go back to all of them, since Kennedy. Maybe Kennedy kind of wanted to backstab them. And so that's what people are telling me now when they ask me this question about Trump. Is he going to backstab them? Is he in their payroll? Who is he? And why is he put there? And we're going to get to that in the second half of the show, the best that I can do. And I'm sure there's many people out there who have great ideas themselves. So if you do, contact me at Greg Beacon, that's GregBeacon at gmail.com. And we can talk about that. But if you see the control that they have, it's no wonder that they're at the top of the pyramid. And that's why when the Pope comes here, he's exalted as God on earth. Well, we have two gods on earth now. We have Ratzinger, who's still around, living in the Vatican City, they say. And we have Pope Francis. So we have two gods on earth. And that's why when he comes to our country now, he's exalted by our Congress. Then he goes to the UN and exalted by all the world leaders, because he's very instrumental in their plan of a one world government and a one world order. Quite simple. And everything they do is geared towards this control. And it's not that they can just, everything goes according to a plan, because there's always going to be stumbling blocks. But I've said it a long time ago. Their idea is to create it. The analogy I always like to use is get on the top of a mountainous, snowy mountain and create a snowball or an avalanche. And basically that grows and grows and grows until they have control of everything. So it's kind of an attempt where they have their people in place, the big guys at the top in place, and the others just kind of come along for the snowball ride, so to speak. Some not even knowing what they're doing. And at the bottom of the list are us, the extras in this grand movie they're playing out for us. And we don't even get extra pay. If you go on a Hollywood set, at least you get $100 a day. We end up paying for them, and that's what makes it even more insulting. But down at that's how they view us. If you ever go on a Hollywood set, the extras are treated like crap. And guess who's treated the best? The starring actors, the producer. He's the best. He's the guy with all the money, so he's kind of like the Pope. And then we have the directors, I would guess the president would be a director, right? And then you work your way down to us extras, who are basically treated like Hollywood extras, expendable. If you're an extra and you can't make it, they'll just get another one. They don't need you. And they treat you that way. You get the worst food. You get the worst accommodations. And they even ask you, on a Hollywood movie, to bring your own clothes. They don't even think you're important to have a wardrobe. It's kind of like what they do with us here in the real world, right? We'll come back and talk about what's up with Donald Trump. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and I wanted to clear up one thing. I mentioned that John C. Calhoun was a nemesis of Andrew Jackson, and he was his vice president. Okay, so check into that. All right, let's get on to what's up with Trump. All right, I got a couple clips I want to play after I give you a bit of a idea of what I think about it, and that may help us come to some kind of understanding. But I got at least 10 emails after I talked about Trump last week asking me to, can you straighten us out on who he really is? Because people understand I go a little bit deeper than just the Hegelian dialectic left-right scenario you get on the mainstream media, okay? So one email said this: "Do you have any idea, Greg, yet as to what is going on with Trump? Now the so-called mental health idiots are debating whether he is mentally ill. The media makes him look nuts after his comment about Sweden. Is this part of the Hegelian dialectic? Just a short answer will do. I know your time is valuable." Oh, my time is your time. That's why I do the radio show. And do you know, I would love for you to give me that answer. Okay, so that's just one of the emails. Another one stated, "Dear Greg, I've been listening to you talk about Trump. I think that Trump is straight and wants to oppose the New World Order. What do you think? All right, then I got another one, just the opposite, stating, I think Trump is nothing but a Jesuit shill, Greg. Get with it. Where are you? You've been talking about this for years. You're giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt. Okay, so we got people coming from all avenues on this. And I guess you could, because whatever these guys do, it's not always that clear. I first start off by asking this question. Was Trump elected or selected? Now, you can't be sure. Of course, categorically, you're going to present circumstantial evidence to prove your case. Now, I use the craziest kind of circumstantial evidence because we're talking about a crazy group here. And if you look back at some of the old Simpson shows, and these are years ago, they showed you exactly what was going on. They had perfectly shown an animated character coming down a stairway, coming down the Trump Tower's escalator, and the hand movements were exactly like Trump. Then they showed you his opponent, an animated woman who had the exact same necklace and stuff that Clinton had. So they predicted this, and they do it a lot of times through Hollywood. So there is circumstantial evidence that the powers that be, the secret societies, the Jesuits that control this push for a new world order, wanted him to win this election. So I use that circumstantial evidence to say he was selected. Now, before I get into a harder discussion, is he promoting the New World Order or is he against it behind the scenes? I know he talks as a national populist who's against the New World Order, but is that really what he is? That's a more difficult question, but first let me answer the question that one emailer sent. The media made him look nuts after his comment about Sweden. Now, he gave a rally speech in, South Carolina. And during his speech, he said, look at what happened. He was talking about terrorism, and he said, look at what happened to Sweden yesterday. Now, that drove the media crazy. That's all they've been talking about. And this gives you a little insight into what Trump does. And he does this on many other occasions with other things. He doesn't talk plainly and clearly. He gives a statement that seemingly can't be backed up by fact, but he does it for a reason so that people look into Sweden. So they're debating, well, nothing happened in Sweden yesterday. And the real point was, then he comes out and clears it up and states, no, I was talking about something I saw on Fox News, a documentary. And what he was talking about is a new documentary just came out about the immigration problem in Sweden. It's huge. And there's places there, Sweden has this policy of letting everybody in. So they got thousands and thousands of Syrian refugees in this small country. And they're creating havoc, like we've talked about. When you get them into certain areas, they're not there to assimilate into the Swedish culture. They've created their own culture because Sweden gives them everything: housing, money, schooling, health care. And they create these Syrian neighborhoods, but they are no-go zones. What's happening is people can't go into those zones without being harassed. Police won't even go into those zones. Now, it's a huge problem. That's, one, being covered up by our media because it doesn't fit their narrative, what they want to do here, basically. The media controlled by the New World Order Jesuits want unlimited immigration here so they can do the same thing in our country, destroy it. They've already got infiltrated moderate Muslim groups here who are not moderate, trying to get us from within. So what Trump did was he said this comment about Sweden, and immediately, because I'd known and looked at this documentary and had checked out Sweden before when I was checking out countries that were being really overwhelmed by their illegal immigration stance. So I knew what Trump did was, I think what he did is he kind of puts this out there, then makes people look at it, and now what will happen is he'll come out and say, yes, see, I'm proved right. Look at what's going on in Sweden. Now, the interesting thing about Sweden that you find out in this documentary is that most of the people support this. That's what's really screwy. And the government doesn't want to tell you the truth in Sweden, but it's a huge problem, as this documentary brings out. And the reason that people support it there is the same reason that people here are out there protesting today, not President's Day, Trump's immigration policy, because they're bleeding heart liberals who don't see the real truth behind the scenes here. If you let a huge Muslim population come in, it's playing right into the hands of the Jesuits and what they want to do to destroy us from within. Fact to be proven out, and you're seeing it play out now in this country between Trump and the nationalists, usually conservatives, people who work for a living, live in the Midwest, against the coast on both the the East Coast and the West Coast, who are these bleeding heart liberals who are screaming, "Oh, please, don't make it difficult for these people to enter our country. Let them just float right in." But did they ever think, do you ever go to an airport now? I dare anybody to go there and get through real quickly without having to take off your shoes and being treated like a second-class citizen. But that's okay. Well, anyway, that's just a little bit about answering the question of that one emailer. Now, the point on what Trump's real agenda is, I have a hard time with it. He could either be one of theirs that plans on, backstabbing them like Kennedy and getting in as much as he can before he's ousted, or he's working with them and presenting this populist agenda, but he's doing it in the Hegelian dialectic mode, which means for years we've had moderate liberals take away the morality of our country. We see it, God out of the schools, transgender bathrooms, and not to mention that, illegal immigration, the laws of this country being, the immigration laws not being paid attention to, Obama supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and not the police, etc., etc. So now all of a sudden, Trump comes in and he's just the opposite. He supports Christians. He basically wants to put God back into the schools. He wants tough borders. He wants to bring back jobs. He wants to lower taxes. Everything that sounds American and sounds good. And if you go just that far in trying to figure this out, you'll say, well, you'll either fall into the liberal hands or you'll fall into the conservative hands. So if you want to go that far, that's where you're at. And of course, I said to myself, if that's as far as I went, I would be probably a conservative and follow what Trump's doing, seeing what's happened to this country in the last 40 years. Now, let's go a step farther. Is he just there telling and playing a good game, showing us this good game? In fact, he's basically stating he wants Christians to have a better walk of life, wants Christians to talk out, wants Christians to come forward. Now, if we go a step farther, why is he doing that? Just the other day, I've seen something that you never see before. Melania Trump, the First Lady, at the speech, at the rally speech, the campaign speech he gave Saturday, started the whole, while introducing him, the first thing she did is said, let's bow for a prayer, and she recited the Our Father. Now, Christians basically were applauding this. Just everyone on the Christian evangelical side was applauding this, while the media on the other side, the left-wingers, were just denouncing it. How could you do that? There's other people who don't support Christianity, etc. So let's look at it this way. Christians, if we go a step farther, most of the Christians that support him are evangelical Christians who basically support the Vatican. So that's to be watched. Now, Christians, the true Bible-believing Christians, must be wary, because if Trump is working for them, maybe he's just trying to bring everybody to the forefront so they know who you are. So that's just one way to look at it. Now, as far as his agenda, I was thinking about this, and it's quite interesting. One of the things he wants to do is create $1 trillion infrastructure repair of all of our bridges, our railway. He wants to bring in a high-speed railway. That's why he was talking to the leader of Japan recently, Abe, and they're talking about bringing this high-speed railway into the United States and do it all over. Now, if you look at Agenda 2050, the UN Agenda 2050, they want to turn America into 10 major regions where 10 major cities you will be living in, so you're easily controlled. Now, if you overlay the plan of the railway system, it fits into that perfectly. So, I said, does anybody else think that way? And I found a little clip two clips that talk about this. And they have a little bit different view of Trump, and I thought it would be good to look at. Now, before I get to that, let me say this. Even if Trump is on their side, Christians, you'll have a way to get things done. He's got to make Christians feel as if they're important again. So he's going to do a lot of things to show that. And one of the things I hope he does is release Tony Alamo from prison, and that's why it's not all of a loss here. And that's why I think we have a great chance of getting Tony out, because I've never seen a case where a true Christian, has been persecuted before. And wouldn't it be interesting? It would be a very, very interesting decision if he does it through his pardon attorney, who, by the way, is still not. I know usually presidents change that because they pardon different people. Obama's guy is still there. And so once that changes, we're going to push forward with Tony Alamo very seriously to see if we can get him released. And you know I've been discussing that for a long time. But let's get to this video, who talks about Trump in a little bit different way, and also regarding that 2050 UN plan. Just a second, let me pod this up. Okay, I hope I got it in the right spot here. I don't have a producer. I have to do it all on my own.
Exactly. If you look at the United Nations Agenda 2050, they have a variety of things that they are planning on doing, and one of them are called mega regions. In the United States, if you look at United Nations, which comes from the philosophies of Alice A. Bailey, you will see that the mega regions will line up with the infrastructure that Trump wants to build. If you take a map of all of the high-speed train lines that he's planning on building, all the tracks, and you superimpose them over the top of the mega region maps for the United Nations plans for the mega regions, they line up exactly. So, wait a second. How in the world does that happen? Is that a coincidence? The globalists and the United Nations want very much to make it so that people live in very small, dense areas of the world. I believe roughly 50 cities around the world, these mega regions in essence. And in the United States, Trump is only planning on building the infrastructure in the very same areas that are considered mega regions. Is that, I mean, what? Why don't people see this? Yeah, so what else is he planning on doing that looks like it's conservative? Yes, we're building infrastructure, wonderful. Well, to what end? What is the ultimate plan?
Do you think that whole thing was just a facade? Like, why do they want conservative, quote-unquote, right-wingers thinking that they've gained a victory? Is this just part of the whole massive shift of paradigms that's, leading towards the New World Order?
Yes, I think so. You have two ways of thinking here, and each way of thinking is moving towards the globalist. It may not look it, but it is. If you go back to 1789 with the formation of the United States Constitution, being ratified, to now, it's all shifting in two specific ways. One, we are shifting away from a biblical Judeo-Christian morality in our culture. And on the other hand, we are shifting away from being a nation to being a member of the United Nations in a global government, in a global way of thinking. Citizen of the world, as Socrates would say. Under Trump, we may hear the rhetoric of nationalism. We may hear the rhetoric of let's make America great again. But in reality, when you start to look at all of his policies and what he plans on doing and the people he surrounds himself with, it falls in line with whatever the United Nations is planning. It may not be pushing the agenda to bring about a one world government in the minds of people, but he is building the infrastructure that will facilitate it down the road. Under Democrats in the United States, we have a loosening of morality, the pushing of an amoral society. Under Trump, we're building the infrastructure of the New World Order.
Mm-hmm. So they're actually coinciding and working together as the two pillars of the same paradigm. So just with different,
exactly.
Seemingly different goals, but complementing each other.
Well, on one level, the immorality is being pushed, and the absence of religion, and then when that finally gets old, they say, okay, let's put that on the shelf. Let's start pushing the infrastructure to build the New World Order. Let's pretend that we're a Christian nation for years, but all the while, like when George W. Bush was president, up until about 2005, I thought George W. Bush was an awesome president because he was because of 9/11 and we're getting after the bad guys and everything. But then I eventually came to the conclusion that learning more and more about him, his personal life, and what he was actually doing with the Patriot Act and all of the story behind all that, wait a second, this is an agenda. We're losing our freedoms. The Patriot Act makes it so that it's legal for the United States government to spy on its own citizens without a warrant, and things like that. The TSA, there are places in the United States that the TSA will stop you when you're driving. The TSA agents will stop you and you will be searched. You will be questioned. We have laws against that in the Constitution, but they're violating them because of the Patriot Act.
So on the one hand, you've got people riled up because they are fed up of this disregard of the Constitution, intrusion of privacy, and therefore is what makes Donald Trump appealing, because he seems to be against that.
Hi, I'm Dr. James Dobson, and I've decided as a private individual to endorse Donald J. Trump for President of the United States.
Well, you see actually now Christians, which is maybe the more worrying thing across the whole country, who have maybe put a lot of faith and hope into him. And this is not judging Donald Trump, this is just discerning the agenda. And so what would you say is the real danger for Christians when we see this kind of mass flocking to this individual and this whole ideology?
I think the worst of it is the lack of discernment. There's no discernment being practiced. In the Christian circles, there are people that are claiming that Trump is the new Cyrus. He is going to bring about a resurgence of faith in Christ. He's going to make it so that if you're a Christian, you're not going to be persecuted anymore by the thought police that we're seeing when the liberals are in power. While that may be the case, that we will not be expecting organized persecution for expressing Christian ideals anymore, that may be relaxed. But on the other hand, we're seeing a cozying up to the Agenda 2050, the Agenda 2030, and the America 2050 plans that we are seeing in the halls of power. We may actually have the ability to speak our minds in public places again without being worried about losing our jobs. But that might be just a way to flush us out so that they know when the time comes, they know who to round up.
Okay, there's a pretty good analysis to help us to come to a better understanding, a discernment of what's happening before our eyes. And you got to remember, these Jesuits, they're a tricky group, and we have to always be vigilant. Now, just to add a little bit to what he said, when I was thinking about this, I said, there was, for a long time, in years, remember the Industrial Revolution, and American people built this country, guess for who? The Pope and the eventual New World Order. Then we go into this period where you see the liberals just destroy jobs in this country, ruin our infrastructure, create an immorality that's unprecedented in American history. And now Trump comes in and wants to put people back to work, build America up again. Are these laborers going to exactly be doing the same thing that we did in the past in the Industrial Revolution? Build up this country for the Agenda 2050 UN takeover? Very interesting to think about. And also, when we look at that, we look at a situation in our country where you can't help but like this now. It is a very, very appealing message, but it's also drawing out the division, this possible civil war that could erupt here, because we have still all of these people on the left who are still voicing every possible immoral thing involved, creating this kind of huge divide now. Every day there's another rally against Trump. They're even talking of impeachment, and he really hasn't done anything. So the Jesuits are in full steam now. And one last thing I wanted to say, I got a lot more to talk about. We can do another show on it. But why would they build up this infrastructure if they want to create havoc here in war? So maybe they have planned to destroy a lot of the infrastructure through a outright war and then rebuild it, just like they destroyed the Twin Towers and then rebuilt it. So you got to think about that as well. A lot of stuff. But hopefully the ideas here answered a few questions that emailers had. And if you have any other ideas, just email me at gregbeacon@gmail.com. Have a good evening. See you tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.